Okay, we shall start with our lecture this morning. Okay, so we are going to continue on this chapter on immune, for this lecture we are going to continue with the detailed mechanism of how antibody mediated immunity works, or it is also known as humoral immune response, and also the other one is cell mediated immune response. Okay, so basically, as you know, these two immune response, it falls under the third line defense. Okay, third line defense or acquired immunity. So it is produced by your immune system to protect your body against specific pathogen. Okay, against specific pathogen, because these two immune response, okay, it involves lymphocyte that has receptor that can bind specifically to an antigen of a pathogen. Okay, so it involves B cell for the antibody mediated immune system, okay, immunity, and the other one, this one is cell mediated immunity. It involves the cytotoxic T cell. Okay, the cytotoxic T cell. And these two immunity, it requires to be activated by the cytokines. Okay, cytokines, which is a signaling molecule released by helper T cell. Okay, released by helper T cell. So last lecture we looked at this diagram where you have a cell, which is, for example, a macrophage. Okay, this macrophage will engulf a pathogen, degrade the pathogen into antigen fragment, present, okay, the antigen fragment using MHC class 2 MHC molecule to form antigen MHC complex, so it becomes APC. Okay, antigen presenting cell. So it is called as antigen presenting cell because this cell, okay, presents the antigen to another white blood cell, which is the helper T cell or the T helper cell. So the T helper cell will have receptor, okay, on its cell surface, and then the receptor will match with the antigen presented by the APC, and you have this interaction. Okay, so this interaction between the APC and also the helper T cell will trigger cytokines, okay, to be released by the APC molecule. So this cytokine will activate the helper T cell. Once the helper T cell is activated, the helper T cell will secrete its own cytokines, okay, and the function of these cytokines secreted by the helper T cell is, one, to activate itself, second, to produce, once the helper T cell is activated, it then produced two. It proliferates. Okay, proliferates into many cells, and then differentiates. Okay, differentiate into two different types of cell, which is the other one. The first one is the effector helper T cell, the activated one that works at the time of infection, and the other group of the helper T cell is the memory cells. Okay, the memory helper cell. Okay, so this is one of the interaction. Okay, so it is between APC and helper T cell, and you have another interaction, which is the interaction between infected body cell or infected host cell. So it is infected because the virus or the pathogen is inside the host cell. So inside the host cell, the pathogen will be degraded into antigen fragments. It binds with class 1 MSC molecule, and then it is presented on the surface of the infected cell. Okay, you have this interaction. You have the MSC antigen complex, antigen MSC complex presented to cytotoxic T cell. Okay, T cytotoxic cell. So this interaction between the infected cell and also cytotoxic T cell is the mediated cell-mediated immune response. Okay, cell-mediated immune response. Okay, so back to this one, the activation of helper T cell here is required, okay, to activate the T cytotoxic cell. Okay, the activated helper T cell, the cytokines, okay, the cytokine released by the helper T cell also will be used to activate the specific cytotoxic T cell that matches with the antigen presented by the infected cell. And then the other function of the cytokine released by the helper T cell is to activate the B cell, okay, in the humoral immune response. So as you can see, the cytokines released by the helper T cell has many functions. Okay, one is to activate itself. Second, once the helper T cell is activated, it proliferates and differentiate into effector and memory. And then the third function is to the cytokine is to activate T cytotoxic cell in the cell-mediated immune response. And then the function of the cytokine also is to activate the B cell in the humoral immune response. The activation of this cell is specific. Okay, specific in determining or it matches, okay, with specific antigen of a pathogen. Okay, so the reaction is specific, okay, because it is third line defense. Okay, so next, okay, self recognition, major histocompatibility complex. Oh, ini just kita nak recap, okay, recap on yesterday's on Tuesday's lecture. Okay, so next here, okay, so alright, so overall that is what happened. Okay, so now we are going to look at the actual process. Okay, proliferation of lymphocytes. What is proliferation? The lymphocyte will divide many times. Okay, will divide many times through the process of mitosis. Why does the lymphocyte needs to divide so many times? So that you produced many B cells and T cells that have specific receptor against or towards the specific pathogen. Okay, so your body has to build up the defense mechanism by producing many of the B cell and T cell that has specific receptor against specific pathogen. Okay, so B and T cell are activated when they bind to antigen via antigen receptors. So these antigen receptors are located on the surface, on the cell surface or the plasma membrane of B and T cell. Okay, B and T cell, they have receptors. Okay, and then once activated, a B cell or T cell undergo multiple cell division, proliferation through the process of mitosis. Okay, and then activated B cells and T cell proliferates into two types of clones. Okay, so the first clone is the effector cell. The effector cell will function at the time of infection. Dia akan berfungsi pada masa yang awak sakit tu. Okay, when the virus enters into your body, so the body needs to fight the virus or the pathogen. So that is the function of the effector. It functions at the time of infection. And then the other clones, okay, is the memory cells. Okay, so the memory cell will be stored in your body for many years. It has long lifespans. And then the function of the memory cell is to protect your body against the same pathogen in the future. Okay, in the future. So if the same pathogen enters into your body again in the future for the second time or for the subsequent times, so the memory cell will be activated. Okay, so dia terus pergi kepada memory cell. Okay, so this is clonal selection. Alright, so clonal selection is a process by which an encounter with an antigen selects lymphocytes, okay, specific lymphocyte that has a receptor that matches with the antigen. Okay, because lymphocyte have receptors, so will divide to produce a clone of specific cell for particular epitope. So basically, the receptor of the lymphocyte, okay, it has antigen binding site. So this binding site, antigen binding site, will actually bind to epitopes. Okay, so epitope kita tengok hari tu kan, what is epitope? So epitope is antigenic determinants, specific structure on a antigen of a pathogen, for example. Okay. Okay. So basically an antigen can have several epitopes. Okay. So it can have several epitopes, so that you can, for example, have many possibility of several B cells, okay, to bind to that epitope of the pathogen. Okay. So macam contohnya virus, okay, so dia ada epitope bulat macam ni. So antigen dia maybe ada macam ni juga, kan. So antigen dia boleh macam ni. So the receptor of the antibody, the receptor of the B cell can bind reseptor bentuk macam ni, and then ada yang reseptor bentuk tiga segi macam ni, contohnya lah, kan. So macam ni. Okay, so you can have many possibilities. Okay, you can, so it means that a virus, okay, a pathogen can be detected by several B cells. Okay. Okay, so next, proliferation of lymphocyte. So you have the effector cells, and then you have the memory cells. Okay, so the effector cell, so these are the characteristics or the difference between effector cell and also the memory cell. So this one you have to know. So for example, when you are asked, okay, to differentiate between the effector cell or the memory cell, you have to know that these are the differences. Okay. So effector and memory cell, it applies to all these cells. So B cell, the helper T cell, and also the cytotoxic T cell. Okay. So the cytotoxic T cell. So it applies for all these cells. Okay. So B cell ada effector dia, memory cell dia ada juga memory cell, helper juga dia ada effector, dia ada juga memory, cytotoxic T cell dia ada juga effector, dia juga ada memory. Okay. So the effector cell, it is short-lived. Okay, the lifespan is short. Okay, because it is only activated or produced during the time of infection. Okay, but the memory cell, it has long lifespan. Okay, so once the memory cell has been produced, okay, it is stored in your lymph nodes for many years to protect your body against the same pathogen in the future. Okay, and then next, respond immediately to antigen during first exposure. So that is the function of the effector cell. So once the effector cell is produced, it responds immediately to the antigen during the first time of infection. Okay, first exposure. And then memory cell rapidly activated upon second exposure to the same antigen, second and subsequent, kan. So awak boleh kena serangan virus tu berulang-ulang kali, kan. So bila awak kena first time, maybe you will get sick. But if you are infected by the same virus, your body has the memory cell to protect your body against the virus. So when the virus enters in your body for second or subsequent time, you will not get sick because your body can now produce immediately antibody, okay, against the pathogen. And then so therefore the effector cell represents primary immune response. Okay, primary immune response is when you are first exposed to the pathogen. Okay, you are first exposed to the pathogen, your body is starting to produce defense. Okay, a defense mechanism towards that specific pathogen. So as for the memory cell, it represents secondary immune response, second time infection by the same pathogen. So this is done by the memory cell. So memory cell tu bila badan awak dah kena infection for the second or subsequent time, dia terus diaktifkan. Okay, it is activated straight away, and then the activated memory cell will produce effector and more memory. Kan, so dia tak habis macam tu je, more memory will be produced and stored. Okay, okay. So and then so next, primary and secondary immune response. Okay, primary and secondary immune response. Okay, so these are the difference, okay, the difference between primary immune response and secondary immune response. Okay, so the characteristics of primary immune response is that it peaks about 10 to 7 days after initial exposure to the antigen. Bila awak pergi kat tempat yang crowded, for example, ada member awak batuk ataupun orang lain batuk, so the virus is circulating in the air, for example. Okay, and then you breathe in the virus for the first time. Awak balik rumah, awak lepak-lepak, sihat lagi. Tapi after 2 weeks, baru awak dapat dia punya simptom tu. Baru terbatuk, baru ada sakit tekak, for example, baru nak demam. Okay, so you are wondering, mana dapat virus ni? Tengok balik 2 minggu lepas awak pergi mana, kan, macam tu. Okay, so that's why hari tu yang COVID tu dia ada quarantine period tu, kan. So your body requires time, okay, to build up the immune response. Okay, so the response is slower. Okay. Okay, so for the secondary immune response, peaks about 2 to 7 days after subsequent exposure to the same antigen. Okay, so once your body has produced the memory cell, okay, yang ini melibatkan memory cell. Okay, alright, so dah ada memory cell dalam badan awak against that pathogen. So when you are infected by the same virus again in the future, so your body has already have the memory cell to produce antibody, for example, against that virus. Okay, so the response is faster. Okay, kita boleh assume macam contohnya itu fungsi vaksin, kan. So vaksin, when you take the vaccine, for example, yang dulu kan, yang asalnya vaksin ni, it contains the weakened virus. Okay, so once the vaccine is inserted into your body, dia akan induce primary immune response. Dia does not trigger badan awak untuk menghasilkan tindak balas imun terhadap virus tersebut. Okay, so dia akan hasilkan memory, dia akan hasilkan effector. Memory is stored in your body, macam tu, kan. So when you are infected by the actual virus, so it is the secondary immune response. Okay, your body has the memory cell to protect yourself against the actual virus, macam tu. Okay, that's how it basically works. Okay, so so this is a graphs, okay, to show you your the primary and the secondary immune response, okay, the reaction. So as you can see, so this is the timeline, okay, day 0 until about 2 months, okay, macam tu. Alright, so antibody and antibody concentration. Okay, so antibody is produced by plasma cell. Plasma cell is the effector B cell. Okay, it is the effector B cell. So effector B cell, saya tukar arrow lah. Okay, effector B cell is the plasma cell that will secrete antibody that will circulate in your body fluids. Okay, so if the virus are circulating or roaming in your body fluid, your blood, your interstitial fluid, your limbs, so the antibody will bind to that specific pathogen. Okay, so as you can see, for the primary immune response, okay, primary immune response to antigen X, okay, antigen X. So antigen X, for the first time it enters into your body. Okay, so antigen X enters into your body, and then you have, for example, phagocytic cell come across the antigen X and engulf. Example of phagocytic cell, you can have dendritic cells or macrophage or B cells. Okay, so those are cells that becomes APC later. Okay, so this phagocytic cell engulf the pathogen. Okay, it engulfs the pathogen, the antigen X, and then it presents the antigen X with MHC class 2, and then it presents to helper T cell. Helper T cell then secretes cytokines to activate the B cell. Okay, the B cell that has receptors specific to the antigen X. So the B cell that is activated proliferate and then differentiate into effector and memory. The effector cell produces and secretes antibody against antigen X. So nampak, it takes time. Macrophage datang, engulf, dia nak kena aktifkan bind dengan helper T cell secrete cytokine, nak kena secrete cytokines untuk aktifkan B cell nak kena active and then proliferate. So it takes time. Okay, it takes time. So and the concentration of antibody produced is low at this time. Okay, so by the time you get the virus, okay, before your body has the defense mechanism against that specific virus, you will get sick first. Demam ke whatever lah simptom untuk penyakit tersebut yang dibawa oleh virus tersebut. Macam tu kan. But you will get better sebab dah ada antibody produced by your immune system. Okay. So and then but if you are infected again in the future by the same pathogen, okay, by the same antigen lah, in this case is antigen X. So your body has already have the memory cell. Okay, memory cell. Your body has already have the memory cell. So as we have looked before, the duration or the lifespan of the memory cell is long. It can last for decades. Okay, it can last for decades, many years. So when you are infected again by the same virus, so the memory cell will be activated to produce memories. Effector and more memory. The effector will produce will produce the antibody. The plasma cell will produce the antibody. So this time, because you have the memory cell that proliferate into many cells, okay, into effector, many of the memory cell. So this time, for the second infection, your body can produce a lot of antibody. Okay, a lot of antibody at high rate. Okay, at high rate. Okay, 2 hingga 7 hari. Kan? So your body is now capable of producing antibody against that specific antigen or specific pathogen. So the pathogen might not have the time to infect your body, so you will not get sick because your body now has the antibody against the pathogen. Okay, so for the second infection or subsequent infection, awak tak sakit dah sebab dah ada memory cell untuk menghasilkan effector untuk terus menghasilkan antibody. Okay, so but if you are infected, okay, kalau yang merah ni pula, if you are infected with a new virus, with a new antigen, okay, a new antigen enter into your body, okay, a new other antigen enters into your body, so it triggers another primary immune response against that specific antigen. Okay, so ini untuk antigen yang baru lah, yang lain yang baru masuk dalam badan awak. Okay, so samalah juga reaction dia kan. So if you are infected again by antigen Y in the future, so it produces the secondary immune response against that antigen Y. Okay, so this is the graph. You have to know how to interpret, okay, this graph between primary immune response and secondary immune response. Okay, so now we are going to proceed with the role of T helper cell. Okay, T helper cell. Saya ni dah terbiasa guna istilah helper T cell, lagi mudah sebab saya dah used to calling it as helper T cell, tapi we have to follow your reference book that you use, which is Solomon. It uses the term T helper cell, so it is the same thing. Okay, so enhances antibody mediated immunity and cell mediated immunity. Why does it say enhances? Because the helper T cell, the helper T cell will secrete cytokines, which is a signaling molecule that activate the B cell, okay, and also activate the cytotoxic T cell. okay, in the cell-mediated immunity. So that's why it says enhances, because the helper T cell secretes cytokine to activate B cell and cytotoxic T cell. Okay, so in order for the helper T cell to be activated, you have to have the phagocytes. Okay, the phagocyte, the dendritic cell, the B cell or the macrophage that will engulf the pathogen. Okay, in this case dia cakap bacteria lah, whatever. Boleh bacteria, boleh virus, okay, other foreign molecules that enter into your body. So APC engulf a bacterium and degrades the antigen into antigen fragments. Okay, so the bacterium is engulfed by the phagocytes. Okay, macrophage for example, it becomes APC and then presents the antigen molecule from that virus or pathogen or bacteria, okay, using class 2, and then dia akan presentkan kepada helper T cell lah. Okay, so APC displays the antigen MSC complex on its cell surface, okay, on its cell surface or the plasma membrane of the APC. So next, the helper T cell or the T helper cell binds to the complex via its T cell receptor. Okay, helper T cell will have receptors, okay, on its cell surface that will bind to the antigen MSC complex. Okay, presented by APC. This is helper T cell. Okay, ini yang kita namakan dia. Sekejap. This is the MSC antigen complex. Okay, MHC, this is MHC antigen complex. MSC class berapa? MSC class 2, sebab it is presented by APC molecule. Okay, APC cell. Okay, so the binding triggers the APC to secrete cytokines. Okay, APC, you have the interaction between APC and helper T cell. So the APC will secrete cytokines. Okay, cytokine secreted by the APC. So the binding triggers APC to secrete cytokines to stimulate the helper T cell to be activated. So once the helper T cell is activated, it produces its own cytokines. Okay, so the activated helper T cell produce its own cytokines. Saya buat warna hijau lah. Okay, so this is the cytokine secreted by the helper T cell. Okay, so a clone of activated helper T cell then will proliferate, okay, proliferate into many of the helper T cell and then dia akan differentiate. Proliferate first. It proliferate, okay, the helper T cell. First, it is activated. Second, proliferate. Third, after proliferation, it will differentiate. Differentiate into what? Effector, helper T cell, and also memory helper T cell. Okay, so a clone of activated helper T cell and memory helper T cell. Activated helper T cell is the effector. The effector helper T cell. Okay, activated T helper cell secrete another cytokines that activate B cells and T cytotoxic T cell. Okay, so the cytokines released by the helper T cell, fungsi dia activate itself and activate B cell and also activate cytotoxic T cell. Okay, so that is the function of the cytokines. Okay, it is a signaling molecules. B cell in the humoral respond T cell, cytotoxic T cell dalam cell mediated immune response. Okay. Okay, so you have this diagram. It is the same thing. Okay, as I scribble here, sama je. Okay, the role of helper T cell. So you have a phagocytic cell. It can be macrophage. It can be dendritic cell. Okay, it can be B cell. B cell can also become APC. So in this case, kita paling mudah kita assume dia adalah macrophage. Okay. So sebab apa? Sebab dia tak ada receptor. Kalau B cell dia ada receptor, kan? So this one we cannot assume it as B cell because B cell has receptor. So it is easier for us to assume this cell is macrophage. Okay. So macrophage, when it encounters a pathogen, so the pathogen will be engulfed through the process of phagocytosis or endocytosis. Okay. So and then once the pathogen is engulfed, it is surrounded by vesicle. So the vesicle containing the pathogen will fuse with a lysosome. Okay, well, the lysosome contains lysozyme. So the lysozyme will degrade the pathogen into antigen fragments. Okay, antigen fragments. So the macrophage then produces a protein which is class 2 MHC and binds with the antigen fragment presented on the cell surface of the APC, and it presents the antigen to a specific helper T cell that has receptor that matches with the antigen presented by the APC. Okay, the reaction you must remember because it is third line. The reaction is specific. Okay, the mechanism is specific due to the presence of the receptor, okay, or TCR, T cell receptor. Okay. Okay, so once you have the interaction between the APC and also the helper T cell, okay, this interaction, the APC will secrete cytokines. Okay, the cytokine released by the APC stimulates the helper T cell. You see here the plus sign. The plus sign, it means that it stimulates. Okay, stimulates the activation of the helper T cell. Once the helper T cell is activated, it secretes its own cytokines. So you see again here a plus sign. So it means that the cytokine released by the helper T cell activate itself. Okay, activate itself. Once the helper T cell is activated, it proliferate and differentiate into effector and memory. Okay, and then the cytokines also will produce is to activate B cell and also cytotoxic T cell. Okay, so next here, ini kan awak tengok ada warna merah ni kan. Ini adalah accessory proteins. Accessory protein here, if I'm not mistaken, it is helper T cell punya. Awak boleh check balik tak kalau ada buku Campbell. Dia adalah helper T cell punya. Nama dia CD. Cuma saya tak ingat CD4 ataupun CD8. Dia ada dua, CD4, CD8. The function of this protein is to enhance the attachment. Okay, enhance the attachment between the APC and also the helper T cell. That is the function of the protein. I don't remember whether it is CD4 ataupun CD8. Awak boleh check Sebab kalau interaction between the infected cell and also the cytotoxic cell juga melibatkan CD. Cuma sekejap saya check dalam buku saya. Okay, so kalau molekul merah ni aksesori protein ni kan antara APC dengan helper T cell ini CD4. Ini saya rujuk buku Campbell page 1160. Tapi edition 10th edition. Okay, 10th edition. So bolehlah tengok dekat buku rujukan awak yang awak ada kan, dia ada mention ke tak. Cuma yang ini adalah CD4. It enhance the attachment, okay, or the interaction between the APC and also the helper T cell. Okay, so it is CD4. Okay, okay, so once okay, back to the activated helper T cell. So the activated helper T cell, once it is activated, it secretes more of cytokines, okay, to activate specific B cell with specific receptors against the specific antigen. Okay, same goes to the activation of cytotoxic T cell. Okay, so it activates specific cytotoxic T cell that has antigen binding site specific for the antigen presented by the APC. Okay, once the B cell is activated, the B cell involves in the humoral immune response. Okay, where the effector cell or the effector cell or the plasma cell secretes antibody. Okay, it secretes antibody against the specific antigen. Okay, yang plasma cell ni, plasma cell adalah effector B cell, activated B cell. Okay, and then for the cytotoxic T cell, it is involved in the cell mediated immune response, attack on infected cell. Okay, attack on infected cell infected by the same antigen of the pathogen. Okay, so secretes antibody. Antibody will bind to the pathogen that circulate in your body fluid. Maksudnya virus yang luar daripada sel badan awak. Kan, luar maksudnya dalam awak punya darah ke, dalam awak punya lymph ke, dalam awak punya interstitial fluid. Okay, in your body humor, body fluid. Okay. Okay, so you have this video. Let me just play the video first. Saya tak tahu kenapa audio dia tak ada.
A macrophage engulfs an invader and breaks it into pieces. It displays the foreign antigen on its surface, along with a self protein. Now let's look at how helper T cells aid cell-mediated immunity and humoral immunity. Imagine that bacteria have infected the body. Antigen molecules on their surfaces identify them as foreign. A macrophage engulfs an invader and breaks it into pieces. It displays the foreign antigen on its surface, along with a self protein that acts as a label for the body's own cells. The macrophage is now an antigen-presenting cell. The antigen-presenting cell secretes interleukin-1. Both interleukin-1 and contact with the antigen-presenting cells activate specific helper T cells to divide and grow into many cells with the same receptors. The helper T cells next activate other cells in the immune system by secreting an
just type humoral immune response or cell-mediated immune response, adalah dia punya animation that you can go and find. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to look at the mechanism. Okay, so we are going to look at the mechanism by the antibody-mediated immunity. Okay, antibody-mediated immunity or the humoral immune response. Okay. Okay, so it's for the first point here, we try to go through one by one. Okay, so dia macam banyak paragraph kat sini. Okay, so number 1, A. Okay, APC takes in bacterium. Okay, so this is the APC. APC internalize the bacteria or the pathogen. Okay, APC takes in bacterium, breaks it down. Okay, macam saya cerita tadi, it is wrapped into vesicles and then fused with lysosome enzyme, or lysozyme breaks down the bacterium into antigen fragments. Okay, into fragments, antigen fragments. Okay, and then presents the foreign antigen on its surface in combination with MHC class 2 sebab dia melibatkan APC class 2. Okay, MHC class 2 antigen. So this is, it produces MHC class 2 antigen MHC complex lah. Okay, so this is 1A. Okay, 1A, this is what happened first. Okay, 1B, this one here, this diagram here. Okay, so a B cell independently combines with foreign antigens on surface of bacterium, but B cell is typically not active. Okay, so ini B cell yang tak aktif lagi sebab dia tak melibatkan helper T cell secreting cytokines yet. Okay, so random B cell in your body fluids that circulate in your blood, for example, with receptors specific for that same bacteria. Okay, specific for the antigen carried by the bacterium. Okay, so B cell yang ada receptor specific for the antigen presented by the bacteria. So remember, this B cell, as I mentioned, it can also become APC. Okay, tapi asal dia B cell ni dia belum diaktifkan lagi. It roams in your body fluid, in your blood, for example, dalam keadaan tak aktif, not active yet. Okay, until stimulated by activated helper T cell. Okay, so figure number 2. I suppose this one here. Okay, tak adalah pula tulis nombor 2 kat situ. Okay, so helper T cell, so this one here, the helper T cell are activated when the receptors combine with foreign antigen MHC antigen complex. Okay, foreign antigen, okay, which is MHC antigen complex. Ini dia patutnya koma lah. Foreign antigen MHC antigen complex on APC. So MPC represents the antigen molecule using class 2 MHC. So dia akan form antigen MHC complex. So this is antigen MHC complex. So the antigen is presented to a specific helper T cell that has receptor matches with the antigen presented by the APC. Okay, so signaling takes place via cytokines secreted by both. So once you have the interaction between helper T cell and APC, so the APC first secretes cytokine to activate helper T cell. Helper T cell then activates its own cytokines also. So both will secrete cytokine, tapi yang akan secrete cytokine dulu adalah APC sebab APC punya cytokine digunakan untuk aktifkan helper. Okay, lepas tu baru helper secrete cytokines. Alright. Okay, so number 3. Okay, once the helper T cell is activated, okay, helper T cell recognizes antigen, which is recognizes antigen MHC complex on B cell. Okay, so this is the activated B cell because it is activated by the cytokines released by the helper T cell. The activated B cell, at this point, it also presents foreign antigen from that same bacteria. Okay, it also presents foreign antigen from the same pathogen. Okay, so the helper T cell secretes cytokines that activate B cells that has interacted with foreign antigen. So B cell then divides. So once the B cell is activated, okay, by the cytokine released by the helper T cell, it then activated, proliferate and then differentiate. Divide ni maksudnya differentiate lah, kan, into two clones, okay, which is the memory and also the effector. Okay, then divides and subsequent division produce clones of identical B cells. Okay, identical B cell. Why does it mention identical B cell? Because now the many B cell produced through the process of proliferation tu tadi, all these B cell will have receptors. Okay, all these B cell will have receptor against the same pathogen. Okay, against the same antigen of that pathogen. Okay. Okay, so number 4. Okay, so B cell differentiate and becomes plasma cell, which is the effector B cell. Okay, and memory B cell. So plasma cell, this is the function of the plasma cell, to secrete antibody. Okay, the structure of antibody is the same as the receptor on the cell surface of B cell. Kita dah tengok hari tu kan, structure antibody dengan structure receptor. Kita dah tengok. So please look again. Dia ada heavy chain, dia ada light chain, dia ada antigen binding site, dia ada constant region, variable region. The variable region will determine the antigen binding site, the shape of the antigen binding site. Okay, except for the antibody does not have the transmembrane region, sebab it is not embedded in the plasma membrane of the B cell. It is secreted, so dia tak ada transmembrane region tu. Okay, so the plasma cell secretes antibody via lymph and body to the infected region. Okay, so the antibody will circulate in your body fluids. Okay, so if in the lymphatic system, it circulates in the lymph. If it's in your blood vessels, it circulates in the blood. Okay, so virus ni boleh ada dalam awak punya lymph, boleh ada dalam awak punya blood, contohnya. Okay, and also interstitial fluid lah. Okay, so the antibodies are specific to the antigen that activates the original B cell. The antibodies are specific. Okay, specific lah because it detects specific antigen initially detected by the initial B cells in the first place. Okay. And then memory B cell remains in the lymph tissue after the infection has been overcome. So the memory cell will be stored in the lymph organs. Okay, in the lymphatic organs such as in the lymph nodes. Okay. Okay, so this, as you can see, diagram dia banyak. So jangan gelabah, just tengok dia satu per satu. Okay, so you have the APC. Okay, so the APC presents foreign antigen MSC complex on its cell surface. So ini adalah antigen MSC complex yang biru ni. Okay, and then activated helper T cell binds with complex and secretes cytokine. So this is the helper T cell that interacts with the APC. The helper T cell will then be activated by the cytokines released by the APC. So the helper T cell secretes cytokines to activate B cell. Okay, to activate B cell with receptor that matches the antigen. So again, ini adalah third line defense. Dia punya tindak balas adalah specific antigen. Okay, matches with the specific antigen. Mesti B cell yang mempunyai receptor that matches with the antigen engulfed by the APC initially. Okay. Okay, so activated B cell increase in size and divides by mitosis. This is the process of proliferation. Okay, proliferate, membahagi dengan banyak. Okay, proliferate into many, so that when you have many of the B cell that have receptor against that specific antigen. Okay, so now is the clonal selection. Okay, clonal selection or clonal, it says here expansion lah. Okay, so clone of competent B cell is produced. So you produce the effector cell. So as you can see, the number of the effector cell is more. Okay, is more. because it function during the time of infection. So the plasma cell function to secretes antibody that will circulate in your body fluid. As for the memory cell produce, nampak ni, B cell differentiate into plasma cell and memory cell. Okay, so plasma cells secrete specific antibody. Why does it say specific? Because antibody binds to the specific antigen initially engulfed by the APC. Okay, so which are transported via lymph and also blood to infected region. Okay, so next, antibody combine with antigen on pathogen surface, forming antigen antibody complexes. Pathogen are destroyed. Okay, so once the antibody circulate in your body fluid, antibody circulates in your body fluid. When it encounters that specific bacteria, the antibody will bind to the antigen on the surface of the bacteria, for example. So you form antigen antibody complex. So it says here pathogen is destroyed, but you have to remember, although it says here pathogen is destroyed, the antibody does not directly destroy the bacteria. Ada mechanism dia yang lain. Kita akan tengok how does the antibody actually involved in destroying the pathogen. Okay, so again here you have another video. You can search the video animation in the YouTube. Ada banyak. Kita cuba just play je. Cuma maybe you can't hear the audio. Just watch the animation je lah. So ini tengok dia apa, dia divide and differentiate into two clones, clone of plasma and also clone of memory lah. So plasma akan secrete the antibody. Okay, memory akan stored in your lymphatic tissues. Okay, so nampak plasma cell secretes the antibody that circulate in your body fluid to find the specific pathogen. Okay, antibody secretes into circulation, blood circulation lah. Macam tu je lah kot. Okay. Okay, so this is a flow chart, I suppose, okay, on how the antibody mediated immune response works. Summary overall, okay, of the response. Okay, so first, a pathogen invades the body. The pathogen enters into your body, and then when a pathogen circulates in your body fluid, it encounters a phagocytic cell. Okay, a phagocytic cell, a phagocyte. So it can encounter or come across with a macrophage, for example. Okay, so the macrophage engulf and become APC. Okay, APC phagocytose the pathogen, and then the pathogen will be degraded into antigen fragments. So foreign antigen MHC complex is displayed on APC surface. Okay, sebab tu kita panggil dia APC, presenting the antigen. Okay, antigen presenting cell. Okay. Present kepada siapa? Dia nak pamerkan kepada siapa? Kepada helper T cell. So helper T cell binds with foreign antigen MHC complex. So here next, activated helper T cell interacts with the B cell that displays this same antigen. Okay, B cell also circulate in your body fluid, but is in the inactive form. Okay, inactive form. Okay, and then the B cell that also binds to the same antigen will bind to the receptor of the activated helper cell. Okay, activated T helper cell. So T helper cell akan secrete apa, cytokines to activate the B cell. Okay, so helper T cell secrete cytokine, activate B cell is activated, divide many times, proliferate to produce clones of B cell. Okay, so clones of B cell then differentiate to become apa, plasma cell and also memory B cell. So plasma cell is the cell that secretes antibody that circulate in your body fluid. So antibody form complexes with the pathogen. Pathogen is then destroyed. Okay, through several mechanism. Okay, sebab antibody ni dia bukan enzim, kan? Dia bukan phagocytic cell. So dia akan ada cara macam mana antibody destroys the pathogen. Okay, so next, so now we are going to look at how does the antibody destroys the antigen. So as you can see here, saya cakap tadi, antibody does not kill the pathogen. Dia bukan enzim, dia bukan pathogen, dia adalah protein molecule, kan? Berbentuk macam ni, buai macam tu contohnya. Okay, so the antibody will not kill the pathogen. Instead, they mark pathogen for inactivation or destruction. So once the antibody binds to the pathogen, it can cause the pathogen to be inactive. Macam maksudnya antibody bind kepada pathogen, it locks the pathogen from moving, for example. Okay. So so one of the mechanism carried by the antibody is called neutralization. Okay, neutralization. So where the antibodies bind to the viral surface protein, which is the antigen, viral surface protein. You can assume this is antigen lah, antigen of the pathogen. Okay, so viral surface protein preventing infection of a host cell. Okay, so antibody bind kepada antigen of a pathogen. So once you have the interaction between antibody and the pathogen, so this prevents the pathogen from entering into the host cell, from infecting into the host cell. Kita tak nak virus tu masuk dalam sel badan awak. Okay. So antibodies may also bind to toxin in body fluids and prevent them from entering your body cells. You do not want the virus or the toxin produced by the virus or the bacteria to enter into your body. Okay. So neutralization. So this is neutralization. So you have the virus, okay, the virus that have antigen on its cell surface. So as you can see, these are epitopes lah, kan? Epitopes. So the antibody, this is the antigen binding site. Antigen binding site. Okay. So specific antibody with specific antigen binding site binding to the specific epitope of an antigen of a virus. Contohnya tindakan dia spesifik lah, meaning that. Okay. So this interaction antigen antibody complex ni, it blocks the ability of virus to bind to a host cell. Okay. So this is neutralization. It prevents the virus from entering into the host cell, from infecting the host cell. Okay. So another mechanism, tadi neutralization. Okay. The second mechanism is opsonization. Okay, opsonization, second method of how the antibody destroys the pathogen. Okay, so in opsonization, antibody binds to antigen on bacteria or pathogen. Okay, presents a readily recognized structure for macrophage, okay, which is a phagocyte. These two are phagocyte, kan, macrophage and also neutrophil. Okay, phagocytes. Okay, white blood cells that engulf the pathogen. Okay, so recognize structure for macrophage and neutrophils, and therefore triggering phagocytosis. So that is opsonization. So it enhances the process of phagocytosis by macrophage and also neutrophil. Sebab virus tu dah tak boleh gerak dah, it is inactive, kan? It becomes inactive. So then this interaction, it enhances the process of phagocytosis by macrophage and also neutrophils. So the antigen-antibody complexes may bind to a complement protein, which triggers a cascade of complement protein activation. So this is the third mechanism by the antibody. Okay, activation of complement proteins. Complement protein yang kita tengok hari tu kan, complement proteins are or complement system kan, it has several it consists, okay, it consists of several proteins, okay, that circulate in your body fluid dalam keadaan tak aktif. But this complement protein, when it encounters this complex, okay, antigen antibody complex, it activates the complement protein. Okay, it activates the complement protein. So the complement protein will bind to this complex, antigen antibody complex, and trigger a cascades of reaction. What is the reaction? The activation of the complement protein will cause the protein to be embedded in the plasma membrane of the virus. Okay, embedded in the plasma membrane of the virus to form pores. Okay, on the plasma membrane of the pathogen. Okay, of the pathogen. So once pores has formed on the plasma membrane of a pathogen from the complement proteins that is activated, what happens next is that water ions will enter into the pathogen and causes the pathogen to swell, kembang, sebab ada air masuk, and then burst. Okay. Burst. Okay. So ultimately, a membrane attack complex forms a pores. Nah, inilah saya cerita tadi, in membrane of foreign cell leading to lysis. Okay, lysis is burst lah. Water ions enter into the cell. Okay, so this is opsonization lah kan. So you have the virus, the antibody binds to the virus, okay, or the bacteria or pathogen lah. Pathogen lah basically, paling senang. Pathogen can be bacteria, can be virus, can be whatever that enters into your body and causes you to get sick. Okay. So and then the interaction between the antibody and also the bacteria enhances the process of phagocytosis. Okay, promotes, okay, promotion of phagocytosis of bacteria by macrophage and also neutrophils. Kan? Okay, so dia ada tiga lah kan. So kita ada neutralization, opsonization yang kedua. Okay, and then yang ketiga ni lah, activation of complement system and pore formation. So this is the plasma membrane of virus, contohnya virus or pathogen or bacteria. Okay, so on the plasma membrane of the virus, it has antigen. Antigen has specific structure, which is the epitope. The antibody binds to the epitope of antigen of a pathogen. The interaction between antibody and also antigen forming antibody-antigen complex. This will be detected by complement protein that is initially inactive, circulating in your body fluid dalam keadaan inactive. But once you have the interaction between the complement system and also the antigen-antibody complex here, this will activate the complement protein. Complement protein then will be inserted into the plasma membrane of the bacteria or virus. Okay, which is the cascade of reaction tu tadi lah, forming a membrane attack complex. Ingat ya, this istilah. You have to remember this istilah, membrane attack complex is this reaction, the activation of complement system forming pores by the interaction between antibody and also antigen. That is membrane attack complex. So you have formation of pores on the plasma membrane of the virus, and then water ions, okay, will enter into the cell of the virus or pathogen causing the cell to swell and then burst. Okay, that is activation of complement system and cell formation involving membrane attack complex. Okay, so this is another animation, sama je, cumanya kalau awak tengok kat sini, okay, tadi kita tengok ada 3 kan, satu neutralization, and then you have opsonization, and then you have activation of complement system. Cuma dalam ni tak ada. Where is the opsonization? Actually, this is number 1, neutralization. Okay, you have the virus or pathogen circulating in your body fluid. Okay, and then next come the antibody binding to the virus, causing the virus to be inactive and cannot enter or infected a body cell. Okay. Okay. Second is agglutination. Okay, so ini neutrophil, it enhances the process also of phagocytosis. Okay, neutralization also enhances the process of phagocytosis. Okay, so next is, okay, kalau kita boleh pausekan jap. Boleh pause. Okay, ini dua ni adalah opsonization. Opsonization, it is divided into apa? Agglutination and precipitation. Okay, agglutination and precipitation. So you can see a group of bacteria or pathogen initially in your body fluid. It is circulating in your body fluid, then come along the antibody to clump or agglutinate the virus together. So when it is clumped together or agglutinate together, then come along macrophage to come and then engulf. Okay. For the precipitation ni, dia melibatkan apa? Dissolved antigen. Badan awak ada fluid kan, ada darah, ada air banyak semua. So you can also have dissolved antigen. So this dissolved antigen, when it encounters antibody, the antibody will bind to the dissolved antigen, causing precipitation. Precipitation. So the precipitation of the antigen, okay, through the binding with the antibody, also enhances phagocytosis. Kan? Asalnya dia dissolve dalam your body fluid. Datang antibody, bind, and then precipitate the dissolved antigen and enhancing the process of phagocytosis by macrophage. Okay. So opsonization ada dua lah, agglutination and precipitation. Okay, so and then yang keempat ni adalah activation of complement system lah kan. So you have the interaction which is tadi apa? Antibody antigen complex. Okay. And then this complex will bind with the circulating complement protein. Initially dalam keadaan inactive. Bila dia bind kepada antigen antibody complex ni, it activates. Okay, it activates the complement protein to form pores on the plasma membrane of the pathogen. Pores then causes water and also ions to enter into the bacterial cell, causing the bacterial cell to swell and then burst. Okay, ataupun lysis. Okay. Okay. So next is cell-mediated immunity. Kita break for 2 minutes. Okay, before we continue with cell-mediated immunity. So saya takut tepu, kita break sekejap. Okay, so now we are going to look at cell-mediated immunity. Okay, so infected cells, okay, infected host cell or body cells displays antigen fragment on its cell surface using class 1 MHC. Infected cell are cells that have nucleus. Okay, any cells in your body that have nucleus, when it is infected by the virus or the pathogen, so the pathogen will be degraded into fragments, and then and then your body cells or the host cell will produce MHC class 1, bind with the antigen fragment, present on the cell surface using class 1. Okay, and then dia akan present kepada siapa? Kepada activated T cytotoxic cell. Okay, activated T cytotoxic T cell recognizes and bind to the antigen MHC complex via its T cell receptor. Cytotoxic T cell has receptor on the cell surface. So the activated T cytotoxic cell releases two chemicals, which is the first one is perforins. The function of the perforins is to form pores, okay, on the infected cell membrane. So the activated cytotoxic T cell then secrete the second chemical, which is granzyme. Perforin is to form pores. Granzyme that enters the cell through the pores and induces apoptosis. Apoptosis. Apa istilah yang saya nak cari tu? Ada saya jumpa, okay? Saya akan beritahu apoptosis is it induces the cell to undergo cell death. That is apoptosis. Okay. So the killing action of the T cytotoxic cells of an infected host cell. So you have the target cells, the host cell. It is infected by the virus or the pathogen. It becomes degraded into antigen fragments. Okay, peptide antigen, for example, and then binds with class 1 MHC to form class 1 MHC complex. Okay, class 1 MHC antigen complex lah, antigen MHC complex. Okay, and then the come along cytotoxic T cell with receptor matches with the antigen presented. So you have the interaction between cytotoxic T cell and the infected body cell, and then you have this protein, okay, which is CD8. CD8 ni adalah kepunyaan cytotoxic T cell. The function of the CD8 is to enhance the attachment between the cytotoxic T cell and also the infected cell. Okay, so that is the CD8 molecule. CD8 ni cytotoxic yang punya. Okay. Okay, so once you have the interaction between the cytotoxic T cell and also the infected cell, the cytotoxic T cell will secrete. Number one is the perforin. Perforin is to form pores. So once pores has been produced, it then secretes granzyme. Granzyme then enters into the infected cell through the pores. Okay, through the pores or through the process of endocytosis. Okay, endocytosis. And then this will induce apoptosis, programmed cell death. Okay, programmed cell death. So it causes the target cell to be destroyed. Okay, so it induces apoptosis. So once the target cell is destroyed, then the cytotoxic T cell will be released to find another infected cell. Okay. So, if I'm not mistaken, one of the function of destroying the target cell or the target cell or the infected cell is to expose, okay, the virus, okay, the virus inside the infected body cell. So once the virus is exposed, dia tak ada rumah untuk dia duduk dah, kan? So it is exposed, it is in your body fluid, then akan datang antibody bind to the exposed pathogen. Macam tadi lah, dia akan induce neutralization, opsonization ke, kan, and then which is engulfed by the macrophage to be destroyed. Okay, boleh check balik kenapa infected cell ni it is destroyed. Okay, it is to expose the virus, it is to deprive the virus or the pathogen from the host cell. Okay, daripada ada rumah untuk dia duduk dan membiak lagi. Okay. Okay, so this is another video, banyak punya video. Boleh you can Google dalam, you can find many videos in the YouTube on the animation. Okay. So this is the infected body cell, present the antigen fragment using class 1. Okay. And then come along the cytotoxic T cell with T cell receptor, binds with the infected body cell. Okay, once you have the interaction between infected cell and cytotoxic T cell, it secretes one perforin and the other one is granzyme. So perforin is to form pores. Okay, form pores. and then another molecule which is granzyme. Instead, so pores ni also causes ions. I lupa. Or ions, water to also insert into the cell. Okay, so this induces apoptosis and deprive the pathogen of a home lah, kan, for it to reproduce. Okay, so this also exposes the pathogen to the circulating antibody to enhance the process of phagocytosis. Okay, so from this diagram here, okay, you can see the difference of on how actually the antibody mediated immunity and cell mediated immunity works. Yeah, so you have the antigen that enters your body for the first time. Okay, antigen that enters into your body for the first time, first exposure. It is circulating in your body fluid and then encounters a phagocytic cell, engulf, and the phagocytic cell, which is it can be macrophage, engulf and then degrade, present the antigen molecule, so therefore it becomes ABC. Okay, ABC, macrophage datang, engulf, dan ABC. Okay, so present kepada siapa? Present kepada helper T cell. Plus sign here is indicating stimulates, okay, activates. Okay, so so the interaction between APC and also helper T cell causes the APC to release cytokine, activate helper T cell. Okay, helper T cell that is activated, it is then divide many times and then differentiate to form two clones, two groups, which is one is the memory cell, which has long lifespan, stored in your body, in your lymph nodes, for example, and then the other one, arrow terbalik balik semula ni, is the effector cell. Okay, effector cell, memory and also effector. Okay, the helper T cell then also secretes its own cytokines lah, kan. The cytokine released by the helper T cell is to activate itself and also to activate cytotoxic T cell in the cell-mediated immunity, and also to activate B cell in the antibody-mediated immunity. So the activated B cell and also the activated cytotoxic T cell will then proliferate and then differentiate into two clones, which is memory and also effector. Effector is B cell. B cell secretes antibodies circulating in your body fluid to undergo tadi proses apa? Neutralization, opsonization, which is agglutination, and also precipitation. And then you have the activation of complement system to form pores on the plasma membrane of the virus, causing the virus to burst, to swell and then burst, lyse lah. Okay, and then the memory cell will be stored in your lymphatic tissues, lymph nodes, to be stored. It has long lifespan for second exposure, also for subsequent exposure by the same pathogen, okay, by the same virus or antigen. Okay, same goes to the cytotoxic T cell. When it is activated, it proliferate and then differentiate into effector or active cytotoxic cell and also memory cytotoxic cell. So so the active will function at the time of infection lah, the effector, kan. So memory stored in your lymph nodes, it has a long lifespan to be to protect your body against future infection by the same virus. Okay, so if you look at this, okay, ni dia punya key dia. Kalau cell mediated immunity, ini awak kan ada tendency untuk ignore sebab dia kat bawah sekali, kan, tapi it is the most important thing lah for you, in order for you to be able to understand, kan. So cell mediated immunity, it defends against intracellular pathogen and also cancer. Intracellular pathogens are pathogen that is inside of the host cell, okay, inside the host cell, okay, infected body cell. Okay, so intracellular pathogen is pathogen that are already infected the body, okay, the body cell, the host cell. Tapi kalau antibody mediated immunity, it is to defend against extracellular pathogen, pathogen that is circulating in your body fluids, blood, lymph, and also interstitial fluid. Sebab the antibody is circulating in your body fluid to find this pathogen that is outside of your cell body, is in your blood, lymph, or interstitial fluid. That's why we call it as humoral immune response as well. Humoral asalnya daripada perkataan humor, which is body fluid. Okay. Okay, so that's done with the third line defense. Okay, antibody antibody mediated immune response and also cell mediated immune response by B and also T cell respectively. So now we are going to look at imbalance, okay, homeostatic imbalances in the immune system. Kita tahu asalnya immune system is to protect your body against infection, okay, by pathogen. But kalau berlaku imbalance, dia akan mengakibatkan certain disease, okay, which you don't want. Okay, so homeostatic imbalances, homeostatic imbalances is disruption in the immune system function. Okay, occurs when the immune system respond to self antigen. Ini salah satu lah, kan? Salah satu imbalance. Salah satu, awak boleh take note ya. Immune system respond to self antigen, causing serious and some fatal diseases. Okay, yang ini sepatutnya statement ni adalah untuk yang ini, autoimmune disease. Okay. Okay, so it can the disruption disruption in immune system, it can lead to this condition, these three condition, okay, which is immunodeficiency disease. Daripada nama awak boleh tahu sebenarnya apa yang berlaku. Immunodeficiency, kekurangan dari segi sistem pertahanan badan awak lah. Sebab apa kekurangan? Maybe lymphocytes, okay, that's supposed to protect you against infection. And then autoimmune disease is this statement, okay, where your immune system attacks self antigen, attacks the host cell, okay, attacks your body organs, attacks myelin sheath, for example. Okay, so that is autoimmune disease. And then another condition is allergies. Okay, so these are the three possibility that occurs if imbalance occurs in the immune system. Okay, so we are going to look at the first imbalance, which is immunodeficiency, kekurangan, deficiency. So it's a disorder in which the immune system is lacking, deficient, okay, lacking the ability to protect against pathogen. Protection is immune system, kan? Kekurangan dari segi immune system. Okay, so lacking. So leads to frequent and recurrent infection and susceptible to cancer, because your body cannot protect yourself from being infected by pathogen. So you are susceptible to being infected by the virus that you are exposed to your surrounding, okay, and also susceptible to cancers. Okay, so there are two conditions here of immunodeficiency. The first one is inborn immunodeficiency, congenital. So it means that you are born with the disease. Yeah, you are born with low amount of white blood cell or lymphocytes. Okay. So results from genetic or developmental defect in the production of immune systems or specific proteins. So example is severe combined immunodeficiency disease, SCID. Okay, where for this one, okay, the person will have a shortage or absence of the B and T cell. So kalau kita belajar tadi kan, humoral immune response, cell mediated immune response requires these two cells. So kalau tak ada, macam mana your body nak produce antibody, for example, okay? And then the person is susceptible to pneumonia and also meningitis that can be fatal, can be treated with bone marrow and stem cell transplantation. Kita tahu kan, bone marrow ni adalah tempat untuk menghasilkan the white blood cell, the lymphocytes, okay? So, and then the second type of disease falls under immunodeficiency is acquired. Okay, acquired immunodeficiency. Acquired, you get the disease later on in life. Okay, develop later in your life. So why? Because you are exposed. Okay, you are exposed to certain chemicals or biological agents such as cancers, drug to fight autoimmune disease, or drugs to prevent transplant rejection. Ubat lah, can you take medicine, drugs, initially is to fight autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease, awak punya sistem pertahanan badan awak terlebih aktif pula. sampai dia attack your body cells. So you take medicine or drugs, which is to suppress. Initially you take the medicine is to suppress your immune system from attacking self antigen, tapi dia suppress secara ekstrim kan, that leads to immunodeficiency pula kan. Asalnya and you have antibody produced, your body can produce antibody but it attacks self antigen, and then you take the medicine to suppress, cuma dia suppress terlebih, so that leads to immunodeficiency. Sama juga dengan transplant rejection, organs from other individual and transplanted in the body of the recipient, the donor organ into the recipient. So there's chance of the recipient immune system to reject the transplanted organ. So therefore, the patient will take, the recipient will take medicine or drugs to prevent rejection tu. Tapi dia suppress your immune system, that could lead to immunodeficiency. Okay. So example of acquired immunodeficiency adalah AIDS. Okay, AIDS, autoimmune disease syndrome. Kita jap. Ada tak? Kita tak ada punya human immunodeficiency syndrome. Sorry, salah. AIDS dia stand for acquired. Okay, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Okay, AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, kan autoimmune sorry, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome that is caused by this virus. Ingat virus dia HIV, penyakit dia adalah AIDS. Okay, so a human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, attacks helper T cell. Kita belajar tadi helper T cell is really crucial because it produces cytokines that activate the anti cell. Kalau HIV ni, the virus attacks helper T cell, it cannot activate B cell and also T cell. B cell, when it is not activated, your body cannot produce antibody. Okay, so the number of helper T cell will decrease, leading to decrease in the number of B and cytotoxic T cell. So therefore, when your body is lacking the B cell and T cell that is activated, so this causes your body cannot be protected against infection by pathogen surrounding you. Kita duduk kat dekat kita punya surrounding ni exposed to many different types of pathogen. Okay, so the virus is the person is susceptible to infection and also cancers. Okay, so the next type of imbalance in the immune system is the autoimmune disease. Okay, it is a disorder in which the immune system fights the body own cell. It attacks self antigen, okay, causing inflammation and organ damage. Example of disease that causes organ damage is lupus, where the immune system attacks your body cells, your body organs, tissues. Okay, so it attacks your body organs, causes inflammation and also organ damage. So 2/3 of people with this disease are women. Okay, so kebanyakannya perempuan yang kena lah kot, I suppose. Okay, so influenced by gender, genetics and also environments, affects nerves. Okay, kalau dia affects nerves, contohnya you have the immune system, your immune cells attacks myelin sheath. Okay, attacks myelin sheath. Kita dah belajar itu neuron kan, myelin sheath dia akan speed up impulse transmission, saltatory conduction. Okay, without the myelin sheath, so the impulse cannot be conducted properly from one neuron to another neuron. So this will lead to a disease, we call it as multiple sclerosis. Okay, multiple sclerosis. Okay, it affects nerves, muscle, endocrine system and also digestive system. Okay, so another example of autoimmune disease adalah rheumatoid arthritis. So rheumatoid arthritis is another example of autoimmune disease where your immune cells, if I'm not mistaken, the antibody attacks your joints. Okay, joints. Kat knuckle area atau semualah joints dalam awak punya badan ni. So it attacks your joint, so your joint will be inflamed. Okay, so ini yang cakap pasal inflammation ni. Okay, inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, inflammation at joints due to antibody that attacks your joints. Okay, so this is rheumatoid arthritis. It is a disorder in which ada satu syndrome yang dia attack endocrine system. Saya tak ingat lah, dia attack your thyroid. So bila dia attack your thyroid, dia akan menyebabkan feature dekat punya muka kepala ni jadi besar. You have bulging eyes. Saya tak ingat nama tu. Adalah penyakit dia. Okay, so dia attacks endocrine system, thyroid glands. Okay, kalau back to rheumatoid arthritis. So it is a disease in which cartilage and joints are damaged and inflamed. Okay, causes deformed joints accompanied with muscle pain. Memang sakit. Okay, sakit, weakness, fatigue, loss of appetite and also weight loss. Okay, weight loss. Selalunya kita tengok pada orang yang dah berumur lah. Okay, tangan dia jadi bengkok macam tu kan, sebab the joints are inflamed. Okay, memang sakit. Alright. Okay, so there are several others autoimmune disease that you can go and search. Another type of autoimmune disease is when your immune cells attacks your pancreas, pancreatic tissues that produces insulin. Yeah, so that could lead to diabetes. Okay. So your pancreas, when it is attacked by the immune system, specifically the cell producing the insulin, so your body cannot produce insulin, so it causes your body cannot use the glucose, so the glucose remain in your blood, causing your blood sugar level to be increased. Okay, so that is another type of autoimmune disease. So diabetes kita tengok hari tu kan dalam presentation, so ada beberapa jenis diabetes. So one of the diabetes is caused by the autoimmune disease. Okay, so next is allergies. Okay, allergies are hypersensitivity responses to allergens or antigens. Okay, allergens. So allergens consist of various food and drugs, insect venoms, molds, fungus spores, dust mite, cosmetic and pollen grains. Allergen ni are foreign to your body, but supposedly it does not trigger your immune system, but for some people it triggers extra reaction, hypersensitivity. Macam certain food, ada orang boleh makan je udang, ada orang tak boleh. Contohnya seafood, okay? Ataupun whatever reaction lah kan, pollen. Ada orang tak boleh kena pollen, ada orang boleh, contohnya kan. So that is allergic. Okay, so that is allergen. Okay, so occurs in nasal passage, bronchi and also skin. Example of the allergies is hay fever. Okay, so occurs rapidly in response to the binding of antibodies to a tiny amount of allergen. So allergic reaction ni disebabkan oleh tindak balas daripada antibody. Okay, specifically is IgE. Antibody ni kita ada several types. If I'm not mistaken, kita ada a few, IgA, IgG, IgE. Dulu ada dalam nota awak dalam syllabus, cuma ini kita tak emphasize dah the different types of antibody, except for we emphasize on this IgE, the type of antibody, okay, that involved in the allergic reaction, IgE. Okay, excessive amount of IgE is produced, okay, in response to initial exposure to the antigen. So when you are exposed to the antigen for the first time, badan awak tak react lagi, cuma badan awak akan build or produce many of the IgE. Okay, so that is for the first encounter of the allergen. Badan awak tak react lagi. Okay, cuma badan awak akan menghasilkan dengan jumlah yang banyak IgE ni. Okay, so the IgE produced will bind to the mast cell. Mast cell ni cell of the host cell lah kan. So upon subsequent exposure to the same allergen, when you are exposed again to the same food or the pollen, for example. So the antigen cross-link to neighboring IgE, and this triggers the mast cell to release histamine. Cross-link to neighboring IgE. Kita tengok gambar rajah. Okay. So this is the B cell. Kan, dia punya reaction, proses untuk menghasilkan IgE ni, antibody IgE ni sama macam kita tengok proses humoral immune response tu tadi, kan, where the pathogen binds to the receptor of B cell and produces activated B cell, plasma cell, semua tu sama. Okay, so in this case B cell punya receptor binds kepada allergen, yeah, binds to the allergen. So the binding of the allergen to the B cell causes the B cell to be activated to produce the effector cell, which is plasma cell. The plasma cell will release the antibody of type IgE. Okay? This IgE will produce in high amount and it will find mast cell. Mast cell ni dekat cell surface dia akan ada receptor. Okay, receptor for the antibody to bind to. Okay, so antibody will bind to receptor on the surface of the mast cell. Okay, so this is during the first initial exposure. Okay, initial exposure. When you are exposed again, subsequent contact. Yang ini first exposure sampai sini. First exposure. Okay, when you are exposed again to the same allergen in the future, okay, so the allergen masuk balik dalam badan awak, bind to the neighboring IgE on the mast cell. Neighboring, so this is what we call as neighboring IgE. Okay, so the neighboring IgE causes cross-link. Ini yang cross-link. Cross-link neighboring IgE. Okay, kita tahu hari tu masa kita belajar dalam inflammatory response, mast cell ni dia akan ada vesicle containing histamine. Okay, containing histamine. So the cross-linking between neighboring antibody by the allergen causes the release of histamine. Kita juga belajar hari tu masa proses inflammatory response. Histamine is a signaling molecule, and one of the effects of histamine is that it causes vasodilation. Okay, vasodilation. Blood vessels dilate. Okay, when blood vessels dilate, it brings more blood to the infected area, or hidu pollen, kan? So it causes vasodilation of blood vessels. Okay, in the nasal cavity, for example, nasal passage. Okay, nasal passage. Okay. Okay, so the release of histamine causes increased vasodilation and capillary permeability. Kita belajar inflammatory hari tu, kan? So vasodilate, bring more blood to this infected area. So it also increases the permeability of the blood capillary. So fluid from the blood flows out of the blood capillaries, causing edema, swelling, macam tu, kan? So and capillary permeability symptom, it causes mucosal edema. Okay, mucosal edema, redness, rashes, runny nose, sneezing. So this is the symptom of a person having allergic reaction. Okay, so it can be treated using antihistamine and epinephrine. Antihistamine adalah macam satu drugs where ini yang saya ingat apa yang saya baca, kalau boleh rujuk balik. It is a medicine where the medicine will bind to the receptor on the mast cell. The antihistamine will bind to the receptor on the mast cell. So this drug will bind to the receptor, preventing the IgE from binding to the mast cell. So that is the function of the antihistamine. It binds to the receptor of the mast cell. So therefore IgE dah tak boleh nak bind dah. Okay, so this reduces the effects of allergic reaction. Or ambil epinephrine. Okay, epinephrine, if I'm not mistaken, dia counterkan yang vasodilation tu. Okay. Okay, so sama je. So this is the same diagram, initial and subsequent exposure. So initial exposure, your body produces IgE. IgE bind to receptor on mast cell. Mast cell sekarang dah ready untuk allergic reaction tu when you are exposed again for the same allergen. So you have neighboring IgE cross-link with the allergen causes the release of histamine. Okay, cross-linking triggers release of histamine, causing vasodilation and increased permeability that cause allergic symptoms. Okay. Okay, so saya nak kita habiskan sikit lagi last subtopic. Boleh tak walaupun dah 9.50 ni, so that we can finish off with this chapter. If you feel that you have another important things to do, you can leave the session. I don't mind sebab dah habis masa. But if you wish to maintain, you can maintain. I don't mind also sebab dah habis masa. Cuma saya nak habiskan on the infectious disease. Okay. Okay, so the last part of this chapter, which is infectious diseases, okay, caused by pathogenic microorganism, okay, such as bacteria, virus, parasite, and fungi. It can be infected through direct contact with the person who is sick, kan? Macam coronavirus sekarang ni lah, kan? Influenza, whatever. So the person who is cough, for example, who coughs, dia punya droplets, okay, that contains the virus will contaminate surface or breathe in or inhaled by another person. Okay, so direct contact with the person. Batuk, pegang member awak, macam tu. Okay, direct contact. So in the indirect contact, when you touch something that has germ on it, batuk, pegang handle pintu. Okay, orang lain pegang pula handle pintu tu, macam tu. Okay, indirect contact, when you touch something that has germ on it, insect vectors such as Anopheles mosquito, insect vector. Okay, so maksudnya mosquito yang carries the parasite. Okay, so it can be the host that carries the parasite, macam tu. Okay, and so the parasite or the virus infect the another host cell. Okay, contaminated food, water, soil, and also plants. Okay, or makanan yang dah spoil. Okay, water, air awak minum tak bersih, tak dimasak, for example. And then soil, awak jalan atas tanah yang kaki awak ada luka, whatever, kan. So these are ways of how you get infected. Okay, so first example of disease is dengue. So dengue virus are transmitted through the bites of this mosquito infected Aedes aegypti and also Aedes albopictus. So you look at this, these are scientific names. Okay, kita dah buat latihan dalam workbook hari tu. Susah payah awak hafal ejaan haiwan ni, but make sure you write according to the way of how scientific names are supposed to be written. Kalau awak tulis tangan dalam exam, make sure you underline. Okay, kalau awak type, awak boleh italickan. Okay, awak boleh italickan. Cuma bila awak tulis tangan, jangan cuba nak italickan sebab kadang-kadang tulisan awak memang ada yang italic yang sengit. Faham? Okay, tulis tangan, underline. Okay. Okay, so which is female mosquito, daytime should be suspected when the person have high fever. So ini adalah simptom lah untuk orang yang dijangkiti dengan dengue. Okay, ada dengue. Okay, so should be suspected when a high fever, which is the body temperature can be up to 40 degrees Celsius, which is accompanied by two of the following symptoms, which is severe headache, pain behind the eyes, muscle and joint pains, nausea, vomiting, swollen glands, and also rashes. Okay, so ini adalah just kadar penyakit tu. Okay, and then Asia is the most infected region, which is about 75% of the global burden of dengue. So kat Asia paling banyak lah. Okay, ni semua statistik dia je lah, kan. Uh, okay, so prevention. So how to prevent dengue? So wear natural colored clothing, okay, long leaf and breathable garment, and then remove containers and disposing of unwanted rubbish around the yard that may collect water. So kalau ada pasu bunga whatever kan, so elak daripada dia bertakung air. Then store containers upside down. Let pots drain directly onto the ground. Avoid using saucers or dripping trays under pot plants. So siapa yang suka menanam ada pasu banyak kat depan rumah tu, make sure tak ada air yang bertakung. Okay. So sampah yang ada containers kat depan rumah, dekat tong sampah whatever, so make sure tak ada yang bertakung air. Okay, and use of personal household protection, which is window screen, mosquito nets, long sleeve clothes, insecticide treated material, coils and vaporizers, surface spray fumigation. Okay, so ada juga yang ada vaksin, okay, people living in some dengue endemic countries. Okay. And then the next disease, which is tuberculosis, which is TB, is caused by the bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Make sure you spell the scientific names correctly with the correct scientific format of writing the name. And then that most often affects the lung. Tuberculosis is curable and preventable. So this is the infected person, the patient. So he coughs, and then the droplets may contain TB that may be in the surrounding air and then inhaled by another person. Okay. So prevention is through immunization, which is TB vaccine or BCG. Okay, is given to babies and also children. Babies lahir tu dah diberikan BCG lah. Kalau children, if I'm not mistaken, darjah 1 ambil baik semula. Okay. So improving the ventilation indoors, in indoors. Okay, dalam rumah tu make sure ada ventilation udara yang baik lah kan. So fewer bacteria in the air. And then using germicidal ultraviolet lamps. So this is one of the way to kill the airborne bacteria in buildings where people at high risk of tuberculosis lives. Okay, and then lives. Okay, and then treating latent infection before it becomes active, and infected people cough etiquette and respiratory hygiene. So batuk tu kena ada etika dia. Kita dah 2 tahun into the COVID, so sama je. Okay, and respiratory hygiene. Okay, so and then it's hepatitis. Okay, hepatitis is an inflammation of the liver. Okay, in chronic hepatitis, liver inflammation continues for at least 6 months. Okay, so this condition may be mild and results in relatively little damage, or may be more serious, resulting in destruction of many liver cells. Some severe cases leads to cirrhosis and eventually liver failure. Okay, inflammation of the liver basically. So there are so this is the statistic lah. Hepatitis is a risk for traveler worldwide. Okay, so we have here hepatitis A and also hepatitis B. Hepatitis A can cause acute liver failure, which is associated with high mortality. Boleh menyebabkan kematian lah. And then hepatitis B is the leading cause of death. Okay, so these are the statistics you can read. Okay, over 1/4 of the world population have been infected with hepatitis B. So these are the different types of hepatitis. Okay, A, B, and C. Okay, so hepatitis A is the transmission in fecal or oral. It's fecal or oral. Okay, common in areas of poor sanitary conditions. Okay, and then endemics can occur in situation of water contamination. Okay, so pada negara-negara yang pada punya saliran air dia tak berapa nak baik lah kan, poor sanitary condition. Okay, and then hepatitis B, transmission occurs via body fluid, blood, semen, etc. So high risk group include medical personnel, male homosexuals, and also dialysis patient. Okay, and then the third type is hepatitis C. The virus is usually spread by direct contact with the blood of an infected person. including sharing needles and also transfusion. So these are the different types of hepatitis A, B and also C. Okay, so next kelas, ini adalah vaccination schedule by the Ministry of Health. Okay, so daripada baby lagi sampai yang paling crucial lah for you to give to your children. Sebab anak saya sekarang ni umur 7 tahun. 7 tahun. 7 tahun. 5 dengan 3. 5 dengan 3 lah. Yeah, so I will make sure that they have vaccination which is scheduled by this. So daripada baby umur lahir tu ada BCG kan, hepatitis B1, and then 1 month ada hepatitis B, those 2 months, so kena kerap pergi ke klinik kan. So kalau ada parents yang malas nak pergi bersesak dekat klinik ke klinik ibu dan anak tu, dia boleh pergi kepada klinik biasa kan, klinik biasa yang juga ada provide this vaccination. Okay, cuma kena bayar sikit lah. Okay, so make sure little children are vaccinated according to this table lah. So it prevents the spreads, okay, of diseases that is caused by this virus that can cause death to these little children. Okay, so ada yang untuk prevent polio kan, prevent measles, prevent hepatitis, prevent diphtheria. Okay, and then 7 tahun pun ada. Okay, ni 21 month, 13 ada HPV untuk perempuan lah kan, and then 15 tetanus booster. Ini tetanus booster masa 15, dan kalau awak mengandung, nak due mengandung tu, a few weeks before you are due, you are given a tetanus setiap kali mengandung. Tetanus, tak silap saya. Okay, cocok masa you are pregnant again, if you are pregnant. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 7 before your break for Hari Raya.